Hello, sim racers, and welcome back to Friday live stream. Tonight, you are doing the questions, and I'm trying to give all the wrong answers I can get my mind through. I hope you're doing great, guys, and it's been a while. It's been up and downs and not very good schedule to the live streams, but hopefully, the holidays are in a week or so, and we will probably have more live streams, and hopefully we will be able also to organize the be a better sim racer for 2023. We'll see how it's going to work. Probably maybe a couple of live streams for this before New Year and maybe a couple after New Year, something like that. We'll see how it's going. So, first of all, how are you guys doing? I hope you're doing great on the chat. I see already so many people joining, which is always great. Hey, everybody. That's so nice to see you back. What is the big wheel behind me? It's an old prototype BMW wheel and Porsche round wheel from the 918. No, the DHF tire and so on. I mean, the new tire model is not coming for Christmas. We have a little bit of a small gift, nothing serious, very small stuff for Christmas. One part of it, already that I've been working on the Mercedes presets, so you get a little bit of that, but nothing big. We are working very hard on the DLCs, and the big stuff will arrive with the DLCs later next year. All right, so what are we going to do tonight? We're gonna get random questions from the chat, and we will try to have some fun, possibly, and make some answers, find some answers, and also possibly it could be, yeah, okay, Gabriel, whatever. It could be a good practice for the longer live streams we want to do for the Be a Better Sim Racer for the next year. All right, so let's have a look. Actually, first of all, I have a small surprise that has nothing to do with sim racing, but it might be interesting to some of you at least. So what should we do? Yeah, okay. Here it goes, guys. Don't laugh. Actually, let me check where is my mouse, because of course I cannot find the mouse. Yeah, here it is. And it seems that the voices inside my brain are all true, and there was a guy talking to me all the time. So here it is. Here it is. Here it is. There you have it. So that's the bobblehead of Aris.Drives made by Andimon. It's 3D printed. and it's going to be a very limited production. Actually, we tend to sell the mini Aris. It's going to be 3D printed and hand painted by Andimon, so it's all hand painted. So if you're interested, guys, make sure to check the Andimon Plays merchandising stuff. You help the channel, you help Andy, who has been our admin and maintaining all the community servers and racers and everything. And hopefully we will start like that, you know, see how it's going. And if that is all good, then we might make make more merchandising from myself, and some t-shirts, some mugs, some stuff like that. We'll see. And hopefully we will be able to take the channel completely ad-free, which could be an interesting thing. So let's see. Again, we will be producing a very limited amount of those for starters. They're all going to be hand painted. I don't think we're going to do more than 20 or 30, something like that. Make sure to get into the Discord community and find the links to the Andimon Plays merchandising store at Rebubble. Andimon will show you the link in a minute on the chat. Then we will do some extra t-shirts and stuff like that. We'll see. But small steps. We don't want to, go full crazy about it. We'll see how it goes. All right, so that will stay there for the night. And let's start, I guess. Mini Aris providing guidance for setting up your car. That's a great idea. I don't think the technology is still there, and most importantly, I think the cost will be prohibiting. So, yeah, let's not do this yet, at least. You did well to laugh, Rishab. You should see me when I received it. I had a lot of laugh. All right, so what should we do? There have been some questions, but I've lost them through the chat. It has been a long chat. There was a question. David, come on, mate. Thanks, buddy. Thank you so much for the support, buddy. Entire stock. Okay, Andimon, you have your orders done. Get to work. Asher asks a very nice question. Says, well, first of all, thank you so much that you like the vibe here. We do our best. So he asked, regarding engine braking, why is there so little engine braking in ACC? Why isn't it adjustable? Why don't larger engine cars have noticeably more engine braking? So the engine braking figures we have are directly from the teams. We've been lucky to have these values, and I can tell you, it's no big deal. It's depending on the car, it's somewhere around on the top 70 newton meters of torque to 90 something newton meters of torque. It's all around there, which is not bad. Obviously negative, it's engine brake, not bad, but still not that much. That's how they are. The thing is, the cars have a lot of downforce at the rear, so you don't feel a lot of turning when you're coasting, and most importantly, their differentials are extremely locked in coast. Most of the cars are almost 100% locked in coast, which is what saves those cars, because the aerodynamic sensitivity could make it a lot. Could create a lot of rotation when you're coasting, where you're braking. So all those cars have a lot of differential cost. Now, you might say, okay, but I was expecting more, engine braking. Well, the how do you say that? The flywheel on those cars, on those engines, are extremely um, light, so you could expect to have lots of almost no inertia, very little inertia on the engine, so the engine should brake enough. But when the flywheel is so light, you have two things going on. When you release the brake and there is no extra force, extra torque or whatever, the engine revs will go down very fast. Okay, and that might make you think there is a lot of engine braking, but in reality, what you see is the lack of inertia on the engine, so the revs are going up and down very fast. But when you have the whole car, which is very heavy, important thing to remember, those cars are heavy. There are at least 1,500 kilos with fuel and driver and everything. So when you have so heavy engines, the inertia of the whole body of the mass of the engine is too high for the engine brake to actually stop the car down. I can tell you we already have a little bit too much engine braking work costing, because we also have the added rolling resistance right now. So yeah, it's exactly what it happens practically. I don't know if that answers your question, why this is happening and why not. Let me know, and I will try to answer it better if possible. Aris Bandicoot. Why the Porsche is so slow on straights in ACC? Well, one of the reasons is because we have too much rolling resistance right now. Things will get better with the possible solutions we are implementing right now. Hopefully, I've seen high speeds on the Porsche. Now, it's also something to remind. Most of the high-end setups use a lot of wing on the Porsche. There are compromises that can be done, but in the end, as a lap time, the high wing always gives you a better lap time, which in race it makes you slower, and it's not a big deal, but there is some difference. So we'll see how it will evolve later next year. Other question? How to be a better man? Try to be better. I mean, always when a situation happens, you're gonna do mistakes. Other people are gonna do mistakes against you. Try to, what happened. At some point, try to see whatever happened from a distance, as if you are a third person, and understand that everybody is, trying to, live and fight with their demons, and that will make you a better person, because you will try to improve from whatever happened, and find compromises or better solutions. Good questions. Will 1.9 be net slower? A little bit, maybe half a second, maybe some tenths, or some tracks maybe not. The idea is not to be faster. I think it's much more stable now, but you can use more bump stops, and it becomes much more stable now. Keep in mind that most of the guys use a lot of rake of the car. The rake will create fast entry instability. It is the usual compromises. You try to go fast, the car becomes unstable. The car becomes unstable, you make it stable, the car becomes slower, and so on and so on. The SA improvement with multiplayer and the AI races, it is the same, yes, I think so. At some point the new Porsche will be added, yes. You have plateau, guys, too fast. You have plateaued 5 seconds off the pace. Other than just hours in the seat, will getting faster be most about technique, confidence, attitude, or a series of aha moments? Okay, would you guys stop for a moment and we could show Walter's BG how to get better, how to get over that 5 seconds, what are the steps that you need to do? Would you like that? Okay. Hey, Alexander, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, I'm sure you like the view. I don't know if I should say who you are, but feel free to let me know. um, oh, Marty, I don't know about that. I'll have a look at that. All right, so let's have a look. Let's have a look at Walter's VG question. He says he's plateaued at 5 seconds off the pace. That makes two of us. No, okay. Let's see if we can help you out a little bit. It's not possible in just 10 minutes or 15 minutes to solve this, but let's see what we can do. Let's pick a nice easy circuit so we can help you, because I'm at Ulton Park right now, so that might not be very good. Mikkel, yeah, we could do that. Remind me after this, and we could see if we can do that. All right, so where should we go for how to get better? I mean, we could even go at Monza, but should we go at Monza? Not so sure about that. All right, guys. So Alexander Bethel, that it is in the chat right now. He just gave us the permission. The guy is responsible for official Mercedes, the manufacturer, esports and licensing and stuff that has to do with the simulators. He has been crucial to give us extra information about the new car, the Mercedes, extra information about the evolution of the car, and data, lots of data. He managed to do all of that. He put also the official Mercedes drivers, the real drivers, at my disposition to test things, to see if the car could get better. And he's one of those guys that all of us, not only Kunos as a development team, but also sim racers, should always thank and appreciate the fact that there are manufacturers out there that put proper persons that understand what sim racing is, what simulation is, and let us have access to the data. For us, I'm pretty sure you're doing the same work with iRacing, for example, that have so cool Mercedes cars. I'm sure you're doing the same stuff for Air Factor 2 or whatever. Those guys are crucial for our job. They understand what we're doing. They are helping out. They're giving data. They don't keep stuff secret. And they are always extremely helpful to what we're doing. And I think all of us, the passion we have about driving those beasts behind the monitor, we should thank people like those and the manufacturers like those, because it's really important. It's really important. It seems like I'm doing a little bit of promotion here, but it is absolutely true. Without help of guys like Alexander, stuff like that wouldn't be possible. There are also from other teams as well. I don't want to say just Mercedes, but Mercedes has been always very, very open about that. And big thanks for everything that they can provide us. I have to add on that, always with great pleasure, and it's not just we've been with other people having issues or not, some aggressivity, some happens. It happens because it's a very high performance and very competitive situation at the top level of esports. But with Alexander, it's always such a nice pleasure to deal with, to talk with, to find stuff to do. Anyway, Porsche, Tortellini, I have to tell you, Porsche always appreciate what we do. It has always been extremely helpful. So again, big thanks to Porsche as well. It's one of those manufacturers that, you know, always give a lot of help. Alessandro, let's talk about that a little bit later. All right, so let's try and see. Maybe we could try Misano. Let's go to the Nürburgring. I mean, Nürburgring, it's the Mercedes arena, whatever. So let's go to Nürburgring. Let's pick the Mercedes as we have it here, since we've been talking about Mercedes. And let's help a little bit. What was his nickname again? What was his nickname? Oh my god, I forgot. Walter's BZ. BJ. Yeah, Walter. Okay, Walter. So let's get the aggressive preset here. I think I have the new ones. Yeah. Okay, let's get this one. Okay, we'll just, you know, aggressive preset. It's gonna be the new aggressive preset that you're gonna find on the soon-to-be update. We are going Alpha. We are going to try to find out lap time. We'll try to find out lap time. Si è preso da poco la V3, qualche consiglio? Sai, a me piace quando attivo l'ABS che vibra quando freno tantissimo. Mi piace questa roba qui, è bella. Che così appena comincia a vibrare tiri letteralmente su il piedino dal freno e sei proprio al limite. Appena deve vibrare poco, poi niente, poi di nuovo, eccetera. Ok. Ehi, καλησπέρα τριαντάφυλλε.
Low tire pressure, stay away from curves.
Okay, so Walter asked, he's 5 seconds away from the best lap times. He's trying to understand what to do. Well, first of all, it's never one thing, okay? It's many things together. So there are all details. But the first thing you have to do, obviously, you know that already, is find the reference points, okay? So at least you know that when you are braking, at least on braking reference points, you know that when you are braking, you're always braking at the correct point. And if you brake 100%, you should arrive at a speed that you can make the turn, okay? Now, let's discuss a couple of things regarding the braking. As you know, in order to brake later, you need to get speed inside the turn. So Antani gain is nothing, guys. It's just, you know, Stefano messing with you guys. Antani gain. Antani is from an Italian comedy film. It's a long story, but I want to explain this now. Anyway, we're talking about braking, okay? So to gain lap time, you need to brake later, and you know about that. How you brake later and still do the turn? You need to bring more braking inside the turn, okay? So how do you bring more braking inside the turn? You brake later, as we said, and you should be going straight, and you shouldn't be able to do the turn. But what you do is you start to go into the turn. We will see here now. So 100% braking at the start of my braking line here, 100% braking, and then as I turn in, I modulate the brake. Okay. Now let's see this a little bit in replay and slow motion. So what we're doing here. Okay. So let's go here and have a look. We go really slow. We will open also the HUD. I want you to focus here on the HUD, on the brakes, okay, on the brake bar over here. You will see how it goes up, and then how it's how I'm going to modulate when I'm turning in. So I'm going to my braking reference point. Always get reference point. All right. And this is my reference point here. For example, this is where the kink of the this angle of the white line from the pit exit is my reference point for Nürburgring. The better you get, the later you can brake. But you could start here. If you arrive at full speed and you start braking here, okay, you should be able to make the turn. All right. So this is something that you can always do with pretty much all the cars. If you start your braking just a little bit before, okay, you should be able to make T1 without issues. Number one thing, braking hard 100% into the ABS initially at the first of the turn of the braking. Why are we doing that? First of all, because the modern ABS of the racing cars are very good. Okay. Second of all, the brakes are cold. When you are arriving from a long straight, the brakes are cold, okay? And so you need all the pressure you can put on the brakes to make them go up to the temperature as soon as possible so that they can give you 100% of the friction they can give and stopping power in order to stop your car. Okay, so we go 100% on the brakes go into the temperature, and things start to become interesting in terms of braking. Now, as you know, tires cannot give you grip in two directions at 100%. If you want 100% grip from the tires, okay, you either going to ask longitudinal grip, so braking or acceleration, especially braking, okay, or if you want 100% lateral grip, you can only add, through the turn, you can only ask 100% lateral grip. You cannot brake and turn, accelerate and turn, and get 100%, okay, 100% grip from both directions. So in order to make your braking distance as short as possible, you need to brake with your steering wheel as straight as possible. You will see here as I'm going through my braking, you see here, this is the angle we set on the exit line, on the pit lane exit line, and I am already at 100% now, okay? 100%, right? When I am at 100%, my steering wheel, you can see it down here, sorry for the pop-up of the replay, my steering wheel is dead straight and I will go outside over here. I don't really want to go too much on the outside because then I will be forced to turn a little bit the steering wheel, and I don't want to do that. I want to go directly straight, okay? So, 100% braking, all right? Now, you see that I'm already modulating here, but this is already more advanced. So, instead of going flat down, I can feel where the ABS kicks in, and I can, modulate a little bit. Also, I've been, braking a little bit earlier here to show you. So, I need to elongate a little bit the braking distance. Don't do this initially. What you need to do is brake as straight as possible, okay, 100%. And the moment you start to go into the turn, like this, you see, I'm going in, and my braking pressure here is already at 50%. Again, I remind you, why we do this. Your tires cannot give you 100% longitudinal grip, and 100% longitudinal grip is braking at full braking pressure. Okay, they cannot give you 100% longitudinal grip and turn as well. Okay, if you do that, the ABS will kick in, your braking distance will get much longer because of the ABS, and you are also going to slip laterally, so you're gonna get understeer. All right, so what you're doing is you go into the turn, you are steering your steering wheel, you're giving steering input, and you are releasing the brake pressure. Look at that. Steering goes to the right, braking pressure goes down. Let's move ahead. More steering. Now I'm having some understeer, so I'm releasing the brakes, releasing the brakes, releasing the brakes. Arrived at the apex, completely release the brakes. Coast a little bit. You can now ask, you see I'm going in. Now before releasing the brakes, look at this. So before releasing the brakes, my steering input is at around 90 degrees. Why is that? Because I know that if I steer more, I'm just gonna go out, okay? But the moment I release the brakes completely, then my steering goes more, because I know that since I'm not asking for any longitudinal grip, I have all the lateral grip I can get from the tires. So now I'm asking all the lateral grip I can get for the tires in order to rotate the car. Now this is number one thing that you need to practice, and I'll show you how to understand and have this aha moment on when this works and when not. Okay, so let's try this. Let me drive a little bit. So I will go late on the brakes and keep on the brakes while turning, and you will see what happens. So brake, brake, brake. You see, the car goes straight, okay? Lots of braking, the car goes straight. Now this is exaggerated. I know you're not doing that, but I'm exaggerating in order to show you exactly what is happening. You see, the car doesn't really want to turn if you're keep braking, and the turn down there that we are approaching now is one of the best examples. So if you go very late here and you keep on braking, the car just goes really wide. Okay, so the aha moment, when is the aha moment for that? You know that if you keep braking, you are having understeer, and many people think, oh, I'm having understeer, I need to change the setup to not have understeer. Not really. The moment will arrive, but not really. What you need to do is change your turn-in braking technique. All right. So let's show. I want to demonstrate to you what happens when you releasing the brakes. Okay. If you change ABS values, there is some improvements, but the improvements are small. Okay. Your braking technique is what is going to change the whole situation and make you faster. The ABS can help you, stabilize you, but it's small changes. So again, here, look, braking. Release the brakes, the car goes in. Look at that. All right. So this is the aha moment. You can go really deep into the braking zone, and when you release the brakes, you will see the front end that you can really get into the turn. Look at this. Releasing the brakes, and the car turns. Okay, so this is the aha moment. You completely release the brake. Try to get late on your braking reference point. Brake really late. Go into the turn. You will feel the understeer at some point. Release completely the brakes, even if you are understeering. Okay, and you will feel the aha moment of, oh, the car actually turns. You know. This is the first thing that you need to practice. And look at this again. Really late, releasing the brakes, and the car turns. All right, so let me tell you something about that. When we are saying practice, many people say, okay, let me do a practice session. They go in, they do laps. When you are at 5 seconds away, don't do just laps. Try different driving techniques. Get into a turn and do this. Okay, okay, what happens if I release the brakes? Will I make the turn or not? What happens if I brake later or sooner? Will I make the turn or not? Try this kind of things. Okay? Yeah, Jose, we're going to do the marathons or just many live streams like that. So this is the number one thing. The other thing you want is playing and experimenting with the brake bias. So why the brake bias? What we said before, we said that your tires cannot do both, cannot do lateral and longitudinal. So if you ask more longitudinal, you're going to lose some lateral. Is that correct? You remember this, right? If you ask more longitudinal, you're going to lose some lateral. Now, usually, the front wheels receive much more braking force than the rear. This is always the case, okay? Which means that the harder you're braking, the less lateral grip you have at the front, so the front end washes out, as we say, goes into understeer. By moving the brake bias at the rear, what happens is that the rear tires also start to lose some lateral grip, which means that while you're turning in, losing lateral grip at the rear will help the car rotate. Let's do some examples. So let's see what happens. First of all, we will put the brake bias a lot at the front. Again, I'm exaggerating. Do the same practice stuff. This is practice, okay? So, braking. Look at this. You see how it goes straight while I'm braking? Ooh, you see, understeer. People start changing the setup. No, you don't have to do that. You can play a little bit with the brake bias and completely change the feeling, the feedback you get from the car. Mikael, give me a little bit of time and we will talk about coasting instead of trail braking and vice versa. So again, let's do the braking at the T1. Let's go over there and see what happens when we're braking now. Look at this. Oh my god, so much understeer. You see? Why? Because we are asking so much from the front tires, longitudinal grip, they don't have enough lateral grip to give us. Okay? So now we're gonna ask more braking from the rear tires. So let's go down at the brake bias a lot. Again, I'm exaggerating. You won't need such dramatic changes, but this exaggeration that I actually advise you to try will give you a very clear idea of what is happening. So now we have a lot of brake bias at the rear, 53. Look at that. You see? Instant oversteer. Instant oversteer. You see? You see how it turns? Now, pros and cons of everything, alright? So, now I can enter the turn, but then I have to control how the car oversteers. Some people can control it more than others, okay? It depends on your, on your driving style, or on your talent, or on your preferences, on your experience, whatever. But do this, as it will give you a very clear indication of what is happening. So right now, the rear tires are used a lot by the braking, but by the rear brakes, and so you are losing some of the lateral grip. And losing lateral grip while you're turning means the rear end will start going wide and you have oversteer. Okay, aliens are very good at controlling the oversteer are very precise with their inputs, and so they can use this kind of behavior to rotate the car faster, okay, and go faster. But that is not something that you really need to try right now. What you need is, okay, how can I put more braking inside the turn? Okay, so number one, learn to release the brakes. Number two, play a little bit, not too much, you know, 0.5% up, 0.5% down, 1%. First, exaggerate, as I did right now, so that you understand what is going. And then play 0.5% up, 0.5% down, 1% up, 1% down from the original brake bias that you are using, to see if this can help you with rotating the car into the turns. Okay? That will make you also faster. Once you have relatively mastered that, you are going to have questions as whoever was it before, I don't remember who said, okay, is it better to coast or to you know, to trail brake until, so bring the brakes inside the turn until the apex. With this kind of cars, it's better to trail brake more than, you know, sorry, it's better to coast more than trail brake. You need always trail braking, because the initial part of the turning, you need to stay a little bit on the brakes in order to move some weight at the front and help the car rotate like that. So small amounts of braking inputs, you know, like this, you can see here down on the brake bar on the HUD, small amounts of braking when you are turning towards the apex of the turn, and before the apex, release and go into coasting. That should be the perfect scenario. Okay, so let's say I did all that, I'm good enough, but still I'm very slow. Happens to everybody. This is the last thing, because otherwise we're going into a very, very complex stuff, okay? And we cannot do this into, you know, 15 minutes. So how to get faster? What is an indication that there is still limit, okay, that can be found? There's still lap time that can be found, all right? So even if you are doing your racing lines perfect, so let's say you go out here and then you go into the apex and you hit the apex perfectly, okay, perfectly, and then you go out again and you hit the exit perfectly, and let's show it again one more. So you are staying outside, you go in, you hit the apex perfectly on the centimeter, you go out, you are, so all your lines, all the race positions are perfect for whatever you have to do, okay? Even if you're doing that, that doesn't mean that you are on the limit. And there is a very clear indication about that, and this is how you can find it, okay? So look at that. This is something that I'm suffering myself. I know that I'm not that good, okay? And this is something that the aliens can do consistently, and they are very good at it. So the very fast drivers, the top drivers, can really do it very good. So here's the thing. When I'm going into the turn, and I think I'm on the limit, so I'm on the limit at the turning, I'm on the limit at the apex, and then I'm going out, okay, and oh, you went wide, you're really on the limit. No, I wasn't, and I'll explain to you why I wasn't on the limit. Because I am driving the car outside. It's not that I'm sliding outside because I don't have any more space. Look, if I want, I can stay inside, you see? If at the exit of the turn, you say, okay, I don't care about the racing line, I just want to turn as much as I want. Let's suppose there was another turn, okay? So, if at the exit of the turn you can do this, for example, and you can still stay inside, if at the exit, oops, sorry, you can do this, and you can still stay inside, okay, even if you're going, you know, flat out, this is an indication that you are not really having all the speed you can have inside the turn. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going in really fast, okay, Oh, that was so fast. But now I'm just driving the car outside. I'm driving the car outside. I'm not really... I don't have the absolute speed that I could have, so that I cannot do anything else than just go outside. I'm just, you know, driving the car outside because I know what the racing line is. Like here, for example. Okay. But in reality, there was still grip, lateral grip, to stay even closer. Okay. So if I wanted it, you see, I could stay closer. What is this? This is an indication that at the apex and at the acceleration reference point that I have, or decided to accelerate, I didn't have all the speed that I could have. I should have more speed, more kilometers per hour, but I'm not capable of doing it because I'm not precise enough, you know, to make the car rotate at the... You see, if I try, I go wide. If I don't try and try to stay safe, I go too short and inside. Lap time is gained because you are able to accelerate and stay right at the limit at the edge of the road. Okay, so this is one of the indications that, okay, yes, you are doing the lines perfectly, but you are not fast enough yet. Okay. Yeah, they're not exactly, Tortellini, as Tortellini said, they're not alien secrets. It's all skill. It's skill issue, you know. So I know exactly what's the problem here. I'm not capable of doing it. I'm trying to do it, and I'm getting better. And you see, some people need 5 laps to get at the absolute limit. Some people like me can improve and improve after 2 weeks of practice, but still not at the very limit. And some people will try, and still stay a little bit, you know, wider than the limit for a longer time. So yeah. Okay, so too much info to process about that stuff. I don't want to make it very long. I will stop here. I think though that those are already 3 good things. So number 1, brake at your reference points and learn to release the braking. Okay. Number 2, play with the brake bias in order to rotate the car more so that you don't go wide when you are braking really late. And number 3, at the exit of the turn, even if you are very wide, okay, learn to understand when you are driving your car yourself to do the perfect exit, or you are going wide to do the perfect exit because there is no more grip to keep the car more in. So you need more speed before than what you're doing. It's skill issue. Everything is skill issue. All right. So I hope that was, you know, decent enough as an explanation, a very fast explanation. Possibly to do something like that, we would need, you know, a full live stream. All right. Let's see what else we have here. It's not just the confidence. You can try that, Chris. Chris says it's having the confidence to accelerate earlier. It's not just the confidence. It also takes a lot of precision to understand where your car stands and when to accelerate to arrive. I'm a very safe driver, so when I start to accelerate, usually it's a little bit too late, and I end up to not have the correct amount of speed at the entry at the apex of the turn and at the exit. So it takes confidence, it takes lots of precision, it takes practice, obviously, it takes skill, all of that. David, no, yeah, if you have the clutch and the car is rolling, you need, I mean, I don't know if I understood that correctly. If the car is rolling and you've lost the engine, okay. Now, if you switch off from the ignition, you have to stop the car, otherwise it won't start again. But if for whatever reason, Okay, you stop the car like that. You can start it again, or I'm not sure I understood exactly what you meant. Yes, Kusuf, that's a very good analogy. Werner says, okay, that's an interesting question, I think. Marty, yes, that's an indication both that you should brake later and trail brake it better. And it's also an indication that you might be moving your steering wheel towards the turn a little bit too early. So your steering wheel is not straight, so the ABS, engages and makes sometimes your braking distance longer, or other times makes the braking distance shorter. Sorry, if your steering wheel is straight. So always check what happened. All right. Let's go a bit on the pitch for a moment so we don't have all the noise. All right, so David said something, but I've lost it. Okay, so someone said, Werner Golombik said, if I could estimate the percentage of the actual physics calculation versus looking up values in predefined tables. Not really, but again, this is all a little bit of, let me tell you, bar discussions of sim racers, and I'll explain to you why. So, for example, to give you an idea, R Factor 2, amazing tire model based on physics model, physical model. You know what R Factor, tire model is, for example? They have an actual dyno simulation where you put in the tires dimensions, tire composition of all the layers that the tire is made. So that much rubber, that much metal net angled in that angle, another one metal net in another angle, and so on. So to create the whole structure skeleton of the tire. They also put some chemical, I think, factors in there of what kind of rubber they have in. And once they have this and the dimension of that feed into the system starts a dyno simulator where it puts the tire in all possible positions pre-decided, pre-rendered, and it renders all the possible outcomes that the tire should do. Okay, it's a very, very interesting system. And then, so let's say that, I don't know how to explain you, for example. So you put the tire straight and you say you go to 50 kilometers per hour and now the tire is turned by 10 degrees. What will happen to the tire footprint, to the tire grip, to the tire spring, to the tire heat? So that dyno calculates that stuff, okay, based on long equations and calculations. Very, very cool stuff. I think it's made by Michelin, and then they bought this program to implement inside their factory. I think iRacing also uses the same thing. And once they've done this, that simulator that doesn't run while you're running the game, it's running when you are creating the physics for the game, creates a massive lookup table. It has thousands or millions, I don't know, of data entries in a lookup table. And then they get that lookup table and they run the whole system on that lookup table when you're driving. So, for example, their physical simulation is not really simulation when you're running. It looks into a massive lookup table. This is a very, very simplistic explanation, but it's more or less how it works. Okay. On our side, we have some part of that in a lookup tables, okay, and some part are made with equations. So, for example, people like to call that physical simulation, and ours they like to call it empirical simulation. Turns out that it's always a hybrid of both things. They have a simulator that makes the physical simulation, and then they feed that to the actual game a very big lookup table. We have some small lookup tables, and we have lots of equations that actually simulate the tire flex, for example. So in real time. So it's all mixed, and each development team prefers one or another for very various reasons. We have talked about that. So if you ask me how much of our physics are equations and how much lookup tables, honestly, I don't know. I would guess, I don't know. I have to just shoot it out like that. Probably something like 60 to 70% is equations, and the rest is lookup tables for everything. So it's something like that, but I haven't, you don't stay, because even if you go in there and start measuring and say, okay, how much mathematical equations I have, and how many lookup tables I have, the fact that you have measured 60 from one side and 40 from the other doesn't mean that those 60s are more important than those 40s, or vice versa. So yeah, it's very complex, and honestly, as I said before, it's more a bar sim racing discussion. My dick is longer than yours, rather than okay, what's important. Nobody in the development teams deals with that. It's like, yeah, who cares? I mean, we need to do that. How do we do it? This is the knowledge we have. This is the know-how. This is the documents we found. Let's try to implement it. It worked. Fine. It didn't work. Okay, let's find something else. So we did what we know, and they do what they know, and sometimes we do the same thing both. Sometimes we do different things both, and that's how the whole genre is moving ahead and forward. Rob Zombie says, how far in the future, in the next part, the new setups for the M game? Very, very soon. Very, very soon. What is the best way to add more rotation into the car? Well, it depends a lot on which part of the turn. Generally, I would say a little bit more pitch, a little bit more rake. So a little bit lower front end and a little bit higher rear end. More rake, more rotation to the car, both because of mechanical reasons and of course aerodynamic reasons. Any tips on how to avoid scrubbing and graining the tires? Steering input. Limit your steering input. Do some practice, not about going faster, but finding out how much steering input do I need to make that turn, at the same speed. Do I really need all this, or do I need a little bit less? Can I really do that turn with less steering wheel and still be fast? Fantastic. That means you're not scrubbing the tire. Many people have used to have a driving style where they put too much steering input and they force the front tires to slide so that the car stabilizes, goes into a fake understeer and stabilize the car like this, because they have a setup that is a little bit over rotating. Okay, that obviously provokes a lot of scrubbing and graining to the tires. You need to force yourself to learn to steer and keep the car stabilized and stable without faking the understeer, provoking the understeer. If your tires get graying when you just roll out going down the straights, don't bother. I'll explain to you why. So Franco K says, my tires get grained even when I just roll out of the pits and going down to the straights. The answer is don't bother. The amount of graining that you get while doing a straight with your tires cold, let's say, because this is when it's happening maybe, it's minimal. Sim racers, unfortunately, through the years, through the decades, have learned to drive onto the numbers. They're going crazy about the numbers. Oh my God, I got 2% of tire consumption going out of the pits, and I shouldn't have that. I should have zero. In reality, nobody cares about that. Nobody cares. People are just driving, and this is what modern simulators do as well. Don't bother about small numbers. Just drive properly. If you have that issue, all the other guys in the pit lane will have the same issue, so don't bother about that. Make sure that after a stint, which is 60 minutes long, at the end of the stint with 10 minutes to go, so after 50 minutes long, this is where you want to have the difference. And the difference is not made by a big things you're doing. The difference is made by small details on your driving style, and it's very easy to go really hard on the first laps and have terrible tire wear at the end of the stint, and the exact opposite is also extremely possible if you are more careful what you're doing at the first laps. You're gonna have much better tire wear from the middle of the stint and on. Don't drive on the numbers, drive properly, drive on the field. David Sarezki says, how to get better traction at low speed with the Maca, with the McLaren. I tried softer and harder differential settings. Softer and harder is not correct for the differential. It's open and close differential settings. And also softer rear damper, but I still get the wheel spin. If I'm more gentle on throttle, I get left behind. That's a problem. That's a characteristic of the car. If you open the differential, it's easier to control, but you're losing time because you're spinning the inner wheel. If you close the differential, it's harder to control, but you gain meters, and you can, in the end, you have to make the car having more traction, so less rake, softer rear springs and so on, but this will make you slower elsewhere. You are asking something that I don't have a clear answer, because everything I tell you, it's gonna make a compromise somewhere else, and knowing that you're also a fast driver, it's for sure it's gonna cause you compromises. So whatever you do, it's gonna make better traction but more understeer, or less traction but less understeer. So that's the whole thing about racing, handling, and setups, racing setups. It's a compromise. FL, we just talk about the brake balance, what it does at the start of the video. So maybe after we will put the charters as well, the chapters, so you can watch and find out. I take that as a compliment. Is it an F1 thing with the first lap wear? What do you mean about that? Too many messages. That's so fine. That's great, guys. But I have issues to read everything so fast. So Agar says, assuming that one knows how to drive the track very well, what would a setup workflow would look like that will not cancel out settings down the road? So you go with tire pressures, then you try to find the most aggressive aerial settings that you can handle with your driving style. So very low front end, lots of rake, so you have rotation, lots of downforce, stuff like that. And then you once you have a good aggressive rake, you are certainly going to have some issues on some turns, especially very fast turns with the turning because of the over rotation of the car. You go into the mechanical part and you try with the bump stops and the springs to control the over rotation and the pitch of the car when you are giving a little bit of extra brake when you are trail braking to go into the turn. Okay. Once you have done all that, you go back to the pressures and adjust the pressures and try again. And then you try to lower the brake ducts to gain just small amounts of hundredths of a second here and there with making the brake ducts smaller. And once you do that, you have again to check the tire pressures, because obviously the brakes are going to be hotter and you will need to adjust the tire pressures again. And once you've done that, you do small fine changes to the tire pressures to suit specific turns better. So you find out in what turns of the circuit you have issues, and you can change a little bit the balance of the tires at that turn in order to make it better. Is there a game physics explanation for the terrible tire wear the Lexus has? I doubt it's that terrible, but a car can have worse tire wear than others depending on how what kind of power curve it has, so how it puts down power and torque, most importantly. What kind of settings. Many people like to make the car fast by over rotating the Lexus, because it's easy to do so. But obviously when you are over rotating a car, you are putting stress on the rear tires, and that makes the tire wear goes up. Obviously the center of gravity of the car might be a little bit higher, especially because they are raising they put a lot of rake to the Lexus in order to over rotate, and the rake at the rear raises the center of gravity as well. So as you can see, all of it is compromises. You gain something, you lose something. Hello Boyan, no, I'm not the new boss. I wish. What you can do to reduce the hopping of the car over curbs and bumps? Not too much right now, hopefully more later. You are a fast driver. I mean, yes, you're not an alien, David, but you're not slow. We've lost something a little bit. Danny says, how difficult is it to get the BOP correct for a car as it is difficult as it is in real life? Well, the initial BOP, so the ballast and the restrictors and the turbo pressures, maps, is not that difficult for us, because we get that ready from the real life. We know that on that track this car has 30 kilos of ballast, we put it in, that's it, close. We know that that engine gets a 33 millimeter restrictor, we put it in, that's it, go. The turbo maps, again, we have the pressure maps of the turbos for each car, for each circuit. We put it in, that's it, close. You don't touch that, you know that that's it, fine. Where's the issue? The problem is that each car and each team present their cars into the track with different small evolutions, developments, engine, engine maps, engine. There are things you can do, for example, into the EQ of the engine. So the actual horsepower and torque range and everything of an engine never remains the same from one circuit to the other. The same car has small little changes. So it's very difficult for us to understand what happened and possibly make also those small changes and balance out the cars between them. Many times, you might have a team that their drivers were not in the day, or the opposite. You might have a team that the drivers were in an incredible amount, incredible condition of, performance, and they made the difference of half a second or even 1 second, and you're like, what did they do to the car? And nothing. They did nothing to the car. And keep in mind, as usual, how hard it is. You can see in real life, in qualifying, the cars have differences of 3 seconds between them, and in the top eSport SRO races in qualifying, the top 30 cars were like, I don't remember, 0.2 of a second, 0.3 of a second, something like that. So crazy. And obviously, and rightfully, I can understand why, drivers, teams, and manufacturers all complain about the BOP, and they want it even better. It's a tough, very, very hard balance. Yeah, Kibo, it will. That's a nice. Channel 11 says, please explain bump stop range. I understand stiffness. What determines how you decide when bump stop engage? And then we will. Okay, so before that channel, let's do a very fast answer to Creeper Green Gaming, who says, how do I prevent one tire being 10 degrees hotter and having 0.8 psi different than the rest, and how much this affects the lap time? So the main advice we can give you is, don't bother too much with temperature differences. As long as the temperature difference stays under 20 degrees, you don't have big issues. Okay, when the temperature difference is over 20 degrees, then something is problematic. But usually 10 degrees difference, especially between the front inner tire, it's normal. On some tracks it's going to be even worse. Don't bother too much with the temperatures, because the window of the temperature, of the ideal temperature, it's pretty wide. It goes from 80 degrees to something like 100 degrees, 95, 100 degrees, and you still have optimum temperature. So even if you have 10 degrees difference, it's not that big of a deal. You're still at the optimum grip. Pressures are more important, because pressure is like having springs at each side of your car, because different pressures, different stiffness on the tire. And having different stiffness on each angle of the car is having a chair with 1 or 2 legs shorter than the others. You're gonna have to, you're gonna have an unbalanced chair that goes back and forth. So what you really need to focus is your hot tires. When you have done already 3 or 5 laps, your pressures have to be the same. So you need to have asymmetric cold pressures when you're going out of the pits, and after a couple of laps, when the tires are in hot temperature, your pressures have to be equal. In that way, the car is going to be well balanced, and you won't have strange things going into the turn, braking, accelerating, and so on. Okay? Alright, let's go back to channel 11 and talk about bump stop range, understand stiffness, what determines how you decide when bump stops engage. Trucalo, maybe this will help you as well. Alright, so setup. first thing we need to do is understand what the bump stops are, practically. Okay? So you have obviously the springs, and you all know what the springs are, and you all know how they work. It's no big deal. Pretty much all racing cars have linear springs, so the more you are compressing the spring, the stiffer it gets. The more force it exercises in a linear way. The bump stop is this part, this red part inside the coilover, inside the spring. So for inside the spring, you have the damper goes up and down, and inside you have a short rubber thingy. Okay, that short rubber thingy is practically at some compression of the whole suspension. That short rubber thingy starts to go into compression as well. And being rubber, it means that it has its own stiffness, and the more you compress it, the more force it exercises. So you don't only have the spring which keeps on compressing, you also have the bump stop, okay, which is that rubber. So practically it's like having two springs. And you might say, well, why don't we put a stiffer spring? This is the situation here. Because those cars are very pitch sensitive, as we said many times, you don't want the rake to change a lot. Okay. Hello, Luca. Welcome. You don't want the rake to change a lot. You want to control the pitch when you are braking, especially when you are braking. And so you need very stiff front end. But if you have very stiff front end, then when you are turning and accelerating, the very stiff front end will cause understeer. When you're going over the bumps, the very stiff front end, or very small bumps or curbs, the very stiff front end will make the front end hop. So you don't want that. So you want a decent stiffness on the spring, but only on some occasions when you are heavy under the brakes and you're going into the turn, you want extra stiffness in order to control the pitch of the car, and you don't want that stiffness anymore when you are coasting and accelerating, okay? Especially when accelerating. So this is where the bump stop comes in. You want, so the yellow line is the suspension movement. When you are braking and turning in, you want the yellow line to go close to the bump stop and start compressing the bump stop. At that point, the stiffness of that suspension becomes much more stiff. It raises up. And it's very nice to use rubber for the bump stops, because rubber has a very gradual raise in stiffness. It's not linear, it's very gradual. So it starts very, very soft, but also very fast on very small amounts of compression. It becomes stiffer and stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, much stiffer. Okay? So when you are having problems with the turn in, let's see what happens here, for example. Let's make this very high, like that. Okay? And let's make this very low, wheel rate very low. And let's go out and see what happens. All right?
Low tire pressure, stay clear of the curves.
Werner, pay attention. So, right now, when I'm going into the turn, you see the car rotates. Ooh, it rotates a lot. Especially when the car goes faster. Look at this here. Oh, you see? It rotates. See how it rotates? Why? Because the stiffness of the springs, it's not enough to control the pitch of the car, which means that the front end, the splitter, goes very close to the asphalt. Let's have a look at that. Let me show you. Okay. So without the bump stops, now that I'm turning, you will see here the front splitter goes really close to the ground, and that means that the rake of the car now is more important. You have a lot of pitch, and that means that the aero balance is moved to the front. More downforce at the front, less downforce at the rear. Obviously, it's going to give more grip to the front tire, so less grip at the rear from the initial balance, and the car will start over-rotating. This obviously is especially important the higher the speed you have, because at higher speeds you have much more downforce. Okay? So that's why we don't feel as much the problem on low speeds, but on higher speeds, like here, you see again, look at this, look at how close it is here now on this faster turn, and how much roll we have. This obviously gives more downforce at the front, more grip, lateral grip at this front tire, and that means the car will over-rotate. So when you are having these problems, it's an indicator that, okay, it's time to stabilize the front end at high speeds. How can you do that? You need the suspension to start compressing the bump stop. You won't have that problem that heavy at low speeds, and you won't have big issues with the bump stop in acceleration. So you won't have a lot of how you say understeer during acceleration. So you go into the setup, and you start lowering the bump stop range, and you put the bump stop range close enough, okay, to the suspension. So at the minimum movement of the suspension will start compressing the bump stop, and so the stiffness of the suspension will become much higher very soon at much smaller amounts of compression. That means that your car will gain much less rake. Less downforce at the front during the braking, and that brings you also to more stability during the braking. So let's go and try this out again.
Low tire pressure, stay clear of the curbs.
Look at this. Much more stable than before. Let's try it again here. Even with cold tires, you see? Even some understeer practically. So, bump stop rate, it's the stiffness of the bump stop. Fine. Bump stop range is how close to the suspension movement you're gonna place your bump stop. The closer, so the smaller the amount, the smaller the number, the closer you put it to the suspension, okay, the sooner the suspension will start compressing it for small movements of pitch, and the stiffer the suspension will become. Again, my advice is, when you're having big problems with stability at high speed corners, okay, so medium to high speed corners, you try to go in and you try to give a little bit of trail braking, and the car rotates too much, you go into the bump stop range and you lower the number so that the suspension touches the bump stop much sooner, and that doesn't let the car go into lots of rake. The same thing, you can make it also at the rear. Now the teams are using more and more bump stop at the rear. How that works? When you are accelerating, the rear end squats. So the rear end goes down. So you have negative rake. The more negative rake, the more downforce you get at the rear, the less downforce you get at the front. So the rear tires gain traction and lateral grip, the front tires start to slide, you go into understeer. If you don't want that much understeer, and what you can do is you can lower the bump stop range at the rear, which means that when turning and under acceleration, the rear end will compress the bump stop and will not squat as much. Squatting less, so keeping the rake, will mean that you have more balanced aero downforce front and rear, and the car rotates under acceleration at the exit of the turn. That's the whole thing. Is it clear for you, more or less? Again, those are all things that we should explain in a much wider and longer explanation with some telemetry maybe, or some graphs or stuff like that. But let me know if it was clear enough of what we just said now. What did I miss? FOV and stuff like that. The FOV police is here anyway. Hey Mauro, ciao. Channel, that was good? Good, okay. Happy that you have a little bit of a better understanding about the bump stop range. Thank you, Billy. German translation is called. Oh my God, I won't even go there to try to pronounce that. Jonas says, how should I change the brake bias while braking? By the way, braking is B-R-A-K-E because otherwise it's, taking things apart. But anyway, I digress. How should you change the brake bias while braking downhill or uphill? So, when you're going downhill, you have more weight at the front. If you move the brake a little bit at the front, you're gonna have a little bit shorter braking distances, but more understeer when you're turning in. If you move the brake bias at the rear, you're gonna have a little bit longer brake distances because more brake is at the front, but you're gonna be able to rotate the car much better. So you could say it's a compromise, but really it's not, because usually there is always way too much braking at the front. So going at the rear is always beneficial up to the point that you can control the car and you're not going into too much oversteer when you're turning in. In uphill, sometimes it helps to bring the brake bias a little bit to the front, but again, usually what I would do is simply that. Can I control the turn in? I will put the brake bias as much at the rear as possible. At the moment that I cannot control the turn in and I get too much oversteer, then I will return a click or two at the front. Maverick, I don't know about that for the shared memory and timing gap. I don't know about that. Disco, you're talking about the German translation. Well, yeah, unfortunately, translation always gonna have issues like that. Werner, what you're saying makes sense for possibly for cars without downforce. Here we have cars with quite big amounts of downforce, which are very pitch sensitive. So the rake is extremely important on the balance of the car because of the downforce, not because of the static weight distribution. It's all about the aero balance. It's not GT4 where the cars are not pitch sensitive from the aero. In the GT4s, you're doing the rake for the suspension geometry and for the weight balance. In the GT3 cars, you have lots of downforce and they are extremely pitch sensitive. So you are working with the rake for the aero balance. It's different, and you are working with the bump stop to control the pitch and the rake during dynamic rake. It's all about the downforce. You could even put the whole suspension completely rigid, and the cars would be just as fast, which is something that we were doing back in the days in the initial Formula Ones with the initial ground effect cars, when they started doing proper amounts of downforce and having proper, actually not proper, big problems with pitch sensitivity. So you could put the suspension full rigid. The only reason why they are not doing that anymore, not the only reason, but one of the biggest reasons, is because the modern tires give so much grip that they are quite sensitive in bouncing and sliding and scrubbing. And if you put very stiff suspensions or no suspension at all, you're going to overheat the tires, provoking all kinds of problems. And that is obviously something that you don't want to do and don't want to happen. And so, we are using proper suspensions to control and take advantage of that. But yeah, you can see how the modern cars are very, very stiff. Although there has been a slight inversion of the tendency to be so stiff. Nowadays they are less stiff, both because they find ways with the modern dampers to control the body movements, and because they find ways in the modern aerodynamics to not be as pitch sensitive. And so they use the pitch sensitivity not as an issue anymore, but as an advantage to make the car rotate. Carelli Dipendenza dice: buonasera, in base a quale parametro o requisito modifico il rapporto di sterzata? Ma allora ti devo dire innanzitutto dipende dalla tua muscle memory, nel senso, se sei abituato ad andare in una curva e sei abituato, quando sei al limite del grip, di sterzare a 90 gradi, ad esempio 90 gradi, guarda che è così, cambiando lo steer ratio a 90 gradi di sterzata del volante, le tue ruote sterzeranno più o meno, no? Cioè, steer ratio minore sterzeranno di più, steer ratio maggiore sterzeranno di meno. Mi direi, e quindi se tu sei abituato alla curva di fare questo movimento e senti che le gomme scivolano, è più facile continuare a fare lo stesso movimento ma a aumentare lo steer ratio, così le ruote sterzano leggermente meno, e stare sul limite del grip, piuttosto che imparare, no, a sterzare un po' di meno. La cosa giusta sarebbe imparare a sterzare un po' di meno, ma a volte non è facile. A volte hai fatto talmente tanti giri che dici: caspita, io adesso sono perfetto, mi piace tutto, ho fatto giri, sono veloce, ma consumo molto le gomme. Che succede? Succede che probabilmente stai sterzando un po' di più di quello che dovresti sterzare. Una delle prove che puoi fare: aumenti un po' lo steer ratio, così per lo stesso movimento dei muscoli, che ormai c'hai la memoria muscolare molto ben definita, ha una curva definita, per lo stesso movimento delle mani le tue ruote sterzeranno leggermente meno e così non si voleranno così tanto, no? Tanto quando le gomme scivolano hai già superato il grip, perciò non è che sterzando meno tu sterzerai di meno, semplicemente si volerai un po' meno. Non so se hai capito cosa intendo. Fammi sapere. Rob Zombie, how much difference in the hot pressures is relevant for the car handling from wheel to wheel? I didn't understand that. Can you please explain better? Hey, Andymon, take care, buddy. Guys, again, I remind you, Andymon Plays, subscribe to his channel, go to Discord, ask him information about the merchandising because we are starting production on the Mini-Me over here. And they're gonna be a very limited production initially, 3D printed, painted by hand by Andymon. So make sure to ask him all the details. Andrea, hai ragione, pensavo di fare una cosa ancora, ma e se ci trovassimo dei gruppi di italiani da qualche, so, da K Informatica, lì Sport Palace o da qualche parte di questo tipo, per una serata, si potrebbe fare una cosa del genere, bisogna vedere. Peps asks obviously the usual question every time. It's not your fault, of course. It's just that we have talked about that many times. So, Pep says he opened some setups that have been given to him, and he noticed that there were values that were senseless to him or extreme, and he was told that the cars were bugged, and in that way they went faster. I did a specific full live stream about that. So I compared an alien setup with a normal setup for my driving style. And guess what? The result was that I was just as fast with my normal setup. But the very fast drivers, the aliens, can exploit the physics, can do a lot of training, and can find the very small amount of tenths of a second. I tried those setups, I couldn't drive them. Maybe you can, maybe you're faster with that. That depends on your driving style, or your technique, on your skill issue. Does that mean that the cars are bugged? Yes and no. There are some physics problems that we know where the physics engine doesn't respond in the way we expect it to do, and we're working on that. Is it a big of an issue? Not necessarily, and I'll tell you what. The ranges that you have on the setups are not random ranges, full down or full, max. Those ranges are made from the manufacturers so that the car can work into those sliders. The fact that you see one slider to 0 and the other to max doesn't mean that, oh my god, it's completely crazy and a car has never worked like that. I mean, for example, I saw real Mercedes setups that were on the minimum on the wheel rates, and they were working on the bump stops. I saw even Ferrari doing that in the real life. So it happens. Should it happen as often as it works in Assetto Corsa competition? No. Some things do not act as they want, and we're trying to find out why is that. Some of those issues will remain pretty much forever because the refresh rate you can run into a consumer game is what we have, like 400 Hertz, and you would need something like 5000 Hertz in order to see some differences. Other things are also placebo. For example, if you have 20 sliders to play with, and for whatever reason you got convinced that you could put 10 of those sliders to maximum or minimum and forget about them, that leaves you with the rest of the sliders, which is a smaller number to play with. So you have less variables. I'm pretty much always convinced, and I saw that in reality, that aliens do their lap times that are amazing, and I won't say it happens always, but sometimes it happens even though they use wrong values in the sliders, you know. Sometimes they could go even faster by using different numbers, but you know what, it's a skill issue. In the end, skill is more important here. So as I said, yes and no. Really bad, no. For people that they are not on the level, honestly, you can use completely realistic values and be just as fast or even faster and more constant and consistent during the races. It is my opinion, might not be completely correct, but I have proven it also for me. Some other people will agree with me 100%. Some other people will say, no, you know what, I tried the other setups and I was faster and more consistent. Fine. Yes, that's why, Rob Zombie, you have to have as close pressure as possible to all the tires. You have different pressures when you start, not when you're driving. With hot tires, the pressures have to be identical. Yeah, Jose, it's better to have pressure oscillation centered around the optimal pressure, even though, again, when you're trying to find out the last possible, performance from your car, some people will tell you, you know what, it's better to get out of the turn with a little bit raised pressure so you have less rolling resistance through the straights, and then they go down well when you are going to brake and turn in the turn. So you can gain everywhere if you think about it. Gobnet, thank you so much, buddy. Thank you so much, buddy. Hope you're doing great, and Merry Christmas to you too. I will stream before. Actually, I don't know when is Christmas. Well, we're close. I hope to stream before. What I would change in ACC if I could? Dampers again. We are changing some stuff in the tires which I'm pretty happy with, I think, but we'll see how it turns out, because you know, what I'm very happy with the aero simulation that we did in ACC. I think we were the first to bring the importance of the pitch sensitivity in the modern cars, and it is very well simulated here, and people are from the very slow to the very fast, people are always going to struggle to find the correct compromise in the setup to make the car behave in the correct aero window for the driving. This is something that I'm very happy we managed to do in ACC, and I think it shows you don't drive the cars, you know, in a slidey way. You don't drive the cars with only mechanical grip. You need to find the correct compromise from the aero. It's very important. So that's very happy about it. I'm very happy about the tire pressures simulation, which, you know, puts you to understand in a condition to understand how important tire pressure is to the modern tires and so on. Alpha, hey, happy holidays, buddy. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for your support. Really means a lot. Thank you, guys. Ah, that's good, Gob. That's good. Very happy to hear that. Thank you, Alpha, mate. Thank you so much. Carelli, sì, capisco. Tieni conto però che c'è anche un po' un discorso di che c'è il muso molto lungo, e questo spesso ti fa capire che la macchina non sterza velocemente. Potresti giocare anche un po' con diversi toe davanti per avere diversi Ackerman, un po' una cosa un po' più particolare, per vedere se l'anteriore reagisse più veloce. Non che sterza di più, ma che l'iniziale reazione più veloce. Further ahead, Amrit, let's have a look, maybe. The yellow line is the suspension movement. Okay, it's a suspension movement. I have made a video about that. Search the video about the bump stops. There I explain very well what this telemetry side the setup shows. So you said Ulton with the McLaren. Doesn't that Hey, GS Sim guys, thank you so much. GS Sim Racing, thank you so much, buddy. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's get the aggressive here. We need to work a little bit, maybe, but we'll see. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Sana 47.8. That's nice. That's nice. That's me, man, alien.
Green light. Go, go, go.
Okay, let's have a look at how the McLaren reacts. How it bounces the chicane after the hairpin. Let's see. You mean this chicane here? Oh, I went in way too fast. Let's go over there. Wasn't that bad? Do you like what you see? Let's try again. That's the normal setup, the aggressive. Maybe we can try even something better maybe afterwards. Well, I went a little bit wide, but I'll do it again. Do you like what you see? Release the brakes, went a bit long again. Okay, let's get this. Seems pretty stable. What do you think? Let's get that curve over there. Brake bias 55. Okay. Usually I'm not very good at using too much rear brake bias, but let's try. AFC, Avia, how you doing, buddy? I'm doing great, thank you, buddy. A little bit stressed out, but, you know, usual stuff. We will survive. Looks pretty stable over the curbs. What do you think? Let's try also something different, maybe. Whoa! Oh my God! Mini Aris is down. Mini Aris is down. I knew that would happen sooner or later. Good boy. Nah, my hair has survived everything. I don't afraid nothing. So let's try something extra. Let's put some extra bump stop rates here in order that the suspension doesn't gain all that much of an energy. And let's change this a little bit like that. Yeah. And this as well. Something like that. And try again. Hey, thanks, buddy. Thank you so much, buddy. Thank you. So the Mini Aris, for you that just arrived, we are thinking with Andimon, which are our moderator and administrator of the community. He has a fantastic 3D printer, and most importantly, he's very, very good at painting, because he's an artist, at painting minifigures. And we are thinking to produce a very small amount of limited edition Mini Aris, which are going to be for sale, in order to help Andimon, who is, you know, taking care of the whole community and the channel. And maybe if we have success, we're going to do some more extra merchandising and slowly make the whole channel ads free, which is something that I would really, really like to do. We'll see. We'll let you know, of course, and we'll put all the links underneath and in the Discord community. So let's have another look. So what we did here is we limited a little bit also the suspension movement so that it doesn't gain too much energy. We played a little bit with the dampers to control it. We'll see what is happening. Maybe it's a little bit too low at the rear for this kind of track, but we'll see how the chassis will behave. We need to move the brake bias to the rear as well before. Yeah, it jumps a little bit more now. Hello, Mr. Venci. You see, now it jumps a little bit more, so we could use a little bit softer bump stops to have maybe a better situation. But it's not that bad. It's not just set up here. I don't think you're going to be able to do this right now. But not so soon, but soon. right. I hope you like what you've seen here. Let's have a look from the outside as well. Moves nicely. And that right. Make bias needs to be much farther back from McLaren for you, my friend. Again, guys, don't give solutions that you don't know how the other guy is driving. It's a very sexy looking car, absolutely. One of the most beautiful. Movement is nice. Anyway. Alright, so, what else? What were we saying? Other questions? Yeah, this was only to obviously use the whole track absolutely, but this was only to show you a little bit of bumps and suspension movements. David. ABC Dev says, any tips on identifying when you're out of the aero window, styling, splitter, diffuser, and not just skill issue or different problem setup? That's more difficult. You need more of maybe telemetry work and having more experience. It depends on your experience. Some indications could be, for example, when your car is stable, and it's stable turn in, it's stable, you know, you can deal with it without problems. And you are braking really hard, and you go into the turn in, and the car stays properly under control. And then you release the brakes, and there is, for very experienced driver, there is a moment where the front end raises because you release the brakes, and when it raises up and it's going up, you have an instant and snap of rotation and oversteer, as if by raising the front end, the front downforce the front downforce goes, you know, raises a lot. This is an indication that on some cars can happen, that you have lowered the front end too much, and when you're braking, you are styling the front splitter, and when you are releasing the brakes, the front end goes up, and the front splitter starts working again. Okay, so this is, for example, something you can understand about it. The rear diffuser pretty much never stalls because it never goes that much low in the ground. One of the problems it might happen with some cars, like for example the Ferrari, is that you might start touching the ground, and that's a different problem, because obviously when you're touching the ground, you're losing the whole grip from the suspension. So this is for an advanced level of drivers already. You need to understand what the car does and learn and see, okay, why is this happening if everywhere else my car is stable? Why this happens only when I'm going really deep into the brakes and have a lot of pitch, you know? And usually at that situations we end up with a very stiff front end, but it doesn't solve the problems. It makes the car worse and understeer at slow speeds and so on. So one of the things you could do is keep the car as soft as it is, but raise a little bit, you know, 2-3 millimeters the front end, and by raising it, you eliminate that stall of the front diffuser, for example. Sometimes it works. You could try that maybe on the Porsche, sometimes, stuff like that. Tortellini says, we run out of rear pads in endurance racing. What behavior in the sim makes it possible for us to use rear brakes so much? Why is it so much more efficient? Well, this is both a gameplay choice, skill issue, too much skill in your case, if that's can ever be a problem, and actual real conditions. So it's a combination of those things. Let me explain what I mean. So again, Torelli says, why the top level drivers run out of rear pads in enduro racing, and what behavior in the sim makes possible for them to use as much rear brake bias and be faster, but then have that issue of pads wear in endurance racing. So here's the situation. First of all, the amount of brake power that we have in the sim is a little bit of a compromise. So in reality, you could brake even more. In theory, you could brake with infinite amount of force, okay? And why is that? Because the amount of force you put on the calipers it only has to do with how much pressure you put on your brake pedal. So the stronger your feet are, the more brake pressure you put on the pedal. Now, obviously, the modern cars with the real drivers, they are capable of putting 120 bars of pressure, to the brake pedal. It is absurd the amount of power they are using, okay? And when they do that, they end up with a little bit extra braking force than what we have on the sim. So obviously you're gonna ask, well, why you don't use the full power that the brakes of the car can use? First of all, the absolute power doesn't exist. As I said, you could even possibly go to infinite. If you have something, pressing on the brake with infinite amount of pressure, you're gonna have even more power or bend the brake pedal. In the sims, even the best possible pedals, they hardly arrive to the actual stiffness of a real brake pedal. Okay, so if we put the full power possible, then that will mean that the worse braking pedal you have, the slight touch on the brake pedals will end up locking the brakes or activating the ABS, because in the real life, you can press the brake pedal with 100 kilos and you will probably not lock the tires or not activate the ABS. In a Logitech, for example, small consumer pedal set, you can, if you brake with 100 kilos, not only you will activate the ABS, you will lock everything and you will brake the pedal. So we arrive at a very close number of what the actual real drivers do when they brake 100%, in accordance also with the situation where the ABS actually starts activating. So it's a little bit of a compromise between those things. Now, the ABS starts activating at the front. At the rear, you have much less brake force. So, with a finite amount of brake force, the more brake bias you move at the rear, the more you make the rear tires contribute to the braking as well. And so that helps you shorten the braking distances by some meters, okay? And that's why the aliens like it. On top of that, they can also control a lot of rear brake bias because they are very precise and accurate with their steering inputs, and they can control it, while I can't, for example. So that makes sense. So this is why pushing all that much brake bias at the rear, you can manage to brake a couple of meters, 5 meters, 2 meters, depends, the brake distance, shorter than having more front end, because the front end is already at the limit of the grip because the ABS already is activating. The rear still has some limit, so you put the brake bias at the rear and you help the rear to brake a little bit more. Now, what happens if you do that? As in real life, you are putting under much stress the rear brakes. On top of that, many of the aliens also use a little bit of accelerator in order to shift the brake bias at the front while they're turning in, because they have so much brake bias at the rear. Okay, you have too much brake bias at the rear, you turn in, the car over rotates. In order to control it and stabilize it, they use a little bit of accelerator. At the same time, they also braking. When they do that, you put under more stress the rear end, the rear brakes, and so you end up stressing a lot the rear brakes. Okay, and in a very long term, in a very long endurance race, you end up consuming the rear brakes sooner, which should almost never happen, but it happens. So that's the reason. As you can see, it's a lot of reasons put together, not necessarily because it's not realistic, but also because it is realistic at the same time. David, you can try it. Mendoza, there's no transition between traction control 2 and traction control 1. They work together, and practically they also work even on cars that you have only traction control 1. It's just embedded into the traction control 1 settings. So practically one says, okay, you have to engage by that slip, and the other says, okay, you have engaged by that slip, but by how much engagement do you want, how much do you want to cut? So the cars that have both the levels, you can control them a little bit differently, but you know, it's fine-tuning in the end, as it should be. Ronald, my man, I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so glad you got out of this. I'm doing nothing. I'm glad that, you know, I was there to help you mentally. As you said, I don't know exactly how, but the most important thing you have to remember is that you've made it. Okay, so it fills me joy that you tell me that somehow I did something, but I didn't. You did it. You did it because you found in me something that to, I don't know, make your mind go to the correct direction. That's fine, but in the end, it's all you. So thank you so much for saying so. I'm very, very glad of you, and keep up the good work you're doing on yourself. Hey, Belay, that's nice. That's very nice to hear that. Ferrari on 296. Well, it's gonna be a new car. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be an easier car to handle, as usual. All the modern GT3 cars are easier. Although Ferrari has a little bit of a, you know, approach of let's make an extreme car that goes fast, and you know, if the drivers can drive it, we will win. But then, you know, BOP happens, drivers happens, client teams happens, and things get different. Can I do some laps at Imola? Yes, I can do some laps at Imola. What car do you want to try at Imola? Oh, where's David? Have a look. I mean, not necessarily. It's not necessarily going to work. You use negative rake on the BMW. That's a little bit strange. Probably you like more the stability that it gives you. It's all on your driving style and what you can handle. Tortellini, I remind you, 46% or 53% doesn't mean actually real 46%. Okay, that's why it goes down to 46. It's not that you get only 46% at the front tires and 54 at the rears. No, it doesn't work like that. That's the pressure of the brake hydraulics. But the end pressure on the actual brakes, pads and everything, it's still much more at the front. Even though it says 46 at the rear, you still have more brake power at the front because the front brakes are bigger, stronger, okay, and the rear ones are smaller and have less pistons and so on. So beware of the number. The number is not as in other sims, Assetto Corsa 1 or other sims, that it is absolute. It's not absolute at all. It's the real number that they use the teams, but it's not absolute. It's just the balance that they have from the actual hydraulics. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. It always depends on the driver. Again, as you know, a little bit of the exploits that you guys managed to find into the sim, a little bit of inaccuracies of the sim, and a lot of skill issue and practice. Again, I remind you, real drivers go into the track, get a setup that it works, and drive, and you get what you get. I'm pretty sure that if you put a normal, realistic brake balance on your car, you would be slower by, let's say, 0.2 of a second, 0.3 of a second. Doesn't really matter in real life if you can find those 0.2 of a second with lots of risk to break your car because you cannot train as much. So now you're used to it, okay? But imagine going in Assetto Corsa Competizione first ever time, never tried anything, go in, do 10 laps, and tell you, oh, if you break it, you don't drive it anymore. You wouldn't do it. So it's the combination of all those aspects. The Ferrari 488 is way better on the bumps for sure, because we have some issues on the dampers and bump stops, as we said, which we are working on. And they don't use as extreme setups as they use inside the Assetto Corsa Competizione, because what you see are extreme setups with even zero rear wing and a lot of rake to go faster on the straights, and then they touch down, and then, oh my god, the game is broken. The stiffness numbers we have are exactly the ones we have from the technical manual. So the game is simulating real pads. It's not just pads. They are using also something else. Some teams, I don't remember, but the curves are as close as we can model them. Yeah, it has exceeded our expectations. Yes. Usually no, because the setups we provide are not revised, because they are steady setups and should work, and usually they do work without big problems, and they are as a base for you guys to explore more and get better, or just go into the track and be decent enough. Hello, Sadhu. Ferrari at Imola. Okay, we can try that. Any nice... let's see. That's interesting. Thank you, Amrit. No worries. Thank you, GS Sim Racing. Far too kind. All right, let's just move here. Let's see what we have. I will put some bub storage maybe then and work a little bit here, but let's try it.
Green light, show them where you go.
Tortellini, you might be correct. Again, I remind you, the game has sold million plus, and in the million plus, I can assure you, there are people with joypads, there are people with keyboards, there are people, you know, a lot of stuff happening, you know. So you need to go through the data that you have from the actual cars and find also a correct compromise for people to drive. While I do love all the you know, the aliens and the high sport stuff and everything like that, it's not even 1% of the people, you know, buying Assetto Corsa Competizione. So there are people driving with mouse, you know, keyboard, with all the aids, the assist, everything. So and all those people, you know, they are in the end, because they are such a high number, they are in the end the actual people paying for us to keep on doing our job, giving you free content with the updates on the physics, on the gameplay and so on, DLCs and all that stuff. So it's extremely important. I am very lucky to, you know, to work to a company that puts realism above everything else. So I can do my job and don't do any compromises. You know, it's all full hardcore on the physics. But then, wherever we can help the rest of the people with an extra assist, without making, you know, the car faster for against the other people, or wherever we can help with a good setup preset, we're doing it, you know. Drive in the cockpit view because it is the correct thing to do. You don't drive on the bonnet. Abandon the arcade. Embrace realism. Sean, thank you, buddy. Oops, too much stuff. You know, the whole thing about realism is all the things that you have make a little different. So you can play with it, you know, you don't destroy anything, and it's very nice to start experimenting with stuff and maybe feel the difference or not. If you don't feel the difference, do something else, you know, work on something else. So that's the good thing about simulators. How is it, guys? Totally, do you like what you see? Lock to arrive. I use pretty much everything default, so I don't remember. Rari adulto. We can try that. Oops, went too wide. No big deal. Pit collisions, and yes, we have considered it, and the answer is no. I'll talk about this, we can discuss it again. Pit collision, first of all, in the real races, by the rules, when the car stops for a certain amount of time, you have to place it into the rollers, move it inside the pit box. This, for us, would take a lot of effort and resources and time for something that honestly, I mean, come on, there are more important things to deal with. So it's one of these, decision of why. I mean, it's not gonna, pay and make the car sell 2 times more. It's gonna make happy a lot of us, me included, but at some point you have to draw the line and say, okay, that's enough. Same thing about the pace car. So in real life, you have the pace car because you have some cars stopped on track, right? And you need to have them removed from the track, and that takes time, it's dangerous, most importantly, so you need to wait, you have to clean the track and so on. In simulation, you don't have all of that stuff. It doesn't happen. So what is going to happen if you have pace car? You have a yellow flag, and let's say the pace car comes out, and instantly the car is removed, and everybody else have to wait for the pace car to do at least 1 lap, and then start again when there is no need. So if you implement it, you have to pay the license for the pace car, you have to implement the whole thing, etc, etc, etc. So it takes a lot of effort, money, development time for something that honestly it's only cool to have, but practically doesn't change your life. Again, I would love to have it, but as I said, you draw the line as a development team and say, you know what, doesn't matter, move ahead. Again, don't get me wrong, I would love to have it, and that means that maybe in the future someday we might do it. I don't have any sound. Okay. But it's one of these decisions that you say, okay, what should I do? An extra DLC with cars and everything, or tracks or whatever, or a pace car implementation and everything. You know the answer. Also, never underestimate the fact that sometimes the decisions are also limited to the know-how of the development team. So, for example, we have never done the pace car before, which means that it is a completely new thing that we have to learn how to do it properly, control it, and make it work. Which means usually bugs, So if you can avoid it and do other things more important, that's the solution. I'm not saying, yeah, of course we can do it. No, they're not easy things. So for example, another sim that might have that feature, it's not like, yeah, they did something that it's not important. No, on the contrary, but they did it, they know how to do it, they implemented it, applause, well done, good for them. if we have to do it, we have to do it on par. We don't know how to do it. It's gonna take time, bugs, frustration, money, and time. And at some point you decide to do something else. Same thing with things that we do and other sims don't. So, you know, it's always something like that. Oh, quite. All right, let's see if we play a little bit here. What's going to happen? I want to check. So, I want to go over here, lower this to something more realistic, like 15, 16, something like that. A little more extra at the front. Play a little bit with the dampers because you need some control here at the rear. Oops, too much. Like this, and not that much at the front. We want the front to bounce a little bit extra. All right, looks good. How is the a little bit too much? You could use a little bit less pressure at the rear, maybe, so that the car has better traction, and that would be nice. One, and maybe less camber to have some better traction here. Let's see what happens. Where says Kunos is still the game developer or using third-party developers? No, absolutely. I mean, what third-party developers? The only third-party developers we use is for the conversion to the consoles, where they take our code and, you know, do the appropriate modifications for the consoles. But Kunos is doing 100% of the job, of course. Not sure if I understand exactly the question. Maybe you intend something different that I didn't catch, so I apologize. But it sounds a little bit strange to me, you know, because absolutely 100% we do the whole job. I have a specific video about preload differential. If you search my channel, you know, just click on the search and write preload differential and you will find it. Whoop. Ehi, ma cosa buonanotte? Thank you, John. As usual, John finds the video link. All right, so have a look at the replay from the outside. It's always nice to see. how the cars move around at Oldham Park. I have to apologize, you guys probably won't have the same results right now with the changes I did on the setup, but it's gonna be useful later on next year probably. GS Sim Racing, I don't know what to tell you. This is stuff for our management. Marco and Valerio are much better at controlling these kind of things and get decisions. Usually, I mean, we are in a great position that our games keep on selling for a long time. But at some point, you have to change the technology, because obviously if you keep on updating with DLCs and so on, and not updating the actual technology because you have issues updating, people will start complaining, you're doing nothing but just, milking the cow because you're only doing DLCs. So at some point you decide and say, all right, you know what, it's time to do something new. Vasilis, I would say go with the calculators. Put a little bit wider than the calculators, depending how big is your. If you have 3 screens, go with the calculators. If you have 1 screen, go with the calculators, but then go a little bit wider, like 5 degrees wider, 10 degrees wider, depending on. That's only my advice, not, the scientific method. But then stick to it. That's the most important part. Stick to it and keep on. Forget about it. Forget that it could be better or wrong. You need to teach your brain to understand what he's looking at. So stick to, make a decision on something that seems acceptable to you, okay? Acceptable to you. And then stick to it. Let your brain understand the language of the screen you're looking at, because it will never be reality. It's always going to be smaller, and it will never be 3, except if you're using obviously VR, but that's a different thing. You wouldn't be asking me about FOV for VR, I guess. So I guess you're talking about monitor. My advice is get a calculator, get the number of the calculator, go wider to the point that you like what you see, and it seems okay to you and it seems acceptable. I'm pretty sure it's going to be perfect, and so on and so on. And then stick to it. Don't keep changing, trying to find out the perfection. There is no perfection. You just have to get used to it. Just sim racing another time, because I've been playing with the numbers today, and I've lost my correct settings. So another time I will share them when I get back to it. I actually like the dashboard of Ferrari. Hey, but obviously it's not. It's subjective. Dampers is the last thing to touch. Or the first thing if you already have a setup that it works, and then you need some fine tuning. Ah, you mean the dash with all the small numbers? You mean the actual screen? Yes, that is terrible in the Ferrari. That's true. It's just a couple of rectangles with numbers. One of the most impressive dashes is the second screen of the Bentley. Fantastic. Hopefully, yes, yes. Ha, Samuel. Ha. You ask the worst person to give you a good answer for that. So Samuel asks, he's new to sim racing in general and to the channel. Welcome, first of all. And he says, what is my professional background and how did I end up in my role? Oh my god. Alright, so um, it's a more of a unique situation than a rarity. So practically massive passion about cars engineering, handling and so on, and cars in general. Races, not about drivers, cars. What I always loved since I was a very young boy. Not in Bulgaria, in Greece, for the people that know. Since I was very, very young, I always had a tremendous amount of passion for cars. And I have done karting, I have done some small racing, always track daying and stuff like that. But I ended up in Italy to study medicine because for various reasons in Greece, there's no heavy industry, and when your parents can help you, with studies, usually you end up medicine school, architectural school, or law school. So I ended up doing medicine. I hated it here in Italy. I didn't like it, but I loved cars and computer graphics. So I ended up starting working in computer graphics and tried to. I had big success, I have to say, and I started to move my career towards doing computer graphics for automotive. At the same time, I started, big passion with simulators since even before 2000. And at some point, I started, after doing all the setups and stuff like that and beta testing, I started doing my own modes. And we ended up collaborating with Stefano Casillo on the initial Netcar. We had good success. Then I did a very big mod for GTR2, total mod of the game. And then we decided to work a little bit at the end of the Netcar Pro, improving small details, and work at Ferrari Virtual Academy and work to a future project, which was Assetto Corsa. I ended up doing all the physics, lots of studying, lots of reading, lots of trying, lots of testing, and here we are now. So that's the very, very short answer. It's more complicated than that, but you get the idea. Hey, 90, how you doing, buddy? Prescription for skill issue. We should make a t-shirt with that. Ah, yeah, the books are down here. They're massive, massive amount of books. Let's see if we can show you. And there are more. So you can see behind me, right? That's so easy. Lots of books from here and from there, yeah, underneath, and much more behind those parts. So yeah, You need books. You need. There are even more scientific documents and PDFs in the hard disks backup. So yeah, lots of stuff. Does the roll center change when lower the car in AC? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. All the suspension have 3D real-time cinematics, and of course roll centers, instant centers of rotation, and all the stuff move around dynamically while you lower the car, while you're moving, while you're rolling, while you're going through the bumps and all that stuff. Porsche at Alton. We can do a lap and call it a day, a night, whatever. Timo, I am the one practically taking care of understanding the new features of the cars and explaining to Fernando now, which is my partner and colleague in doing the physics engine. He's the software engineer who does all the physics engine now and improve it. My job is to find the new feature, test them, understand how they work, explain, find maybe some scientific papers, or usually he also finds them as well, and then check if and verify if it works, properly. And he does all the hard work of taking the scientific papers or implementing the equations into the physics engine, and then I verify, I input the files, and all the stuff. That's two of us practically. Rob in the basement, always working in the basement. So you wanted the Porsche? No, that's a Porsche Cup. Where is it? Porsche. Here it is. Nice. What's the error here? It shouldn't be that bad. Okay, let's try. Hello, Michele. How you doing, buddy?
Green light, give it all you can.
Yeah, I should change also the video. Where is it? Come on, mouse, in case. Okay. Let's have a go on the Porsche. Lost the turn in, completely missed the apex. skill issue. Got a bit back. Best thing you can do for your driving is not read the chat.
Well done, mate. This has been personal best.
Yeah, that view is also good. Oh, too much. Always a nice car to drive. Anyway, that was the Porsche. That was the map.
Well done, mate. Personal best.
Let's go to the replay. Have a look. Alright. Messaging your face when you're driving. I don't know. He can write it somewhere and place it in front of your monitor. Will be fantastic. My favorite type of music. I don't have a favorite type of music because I like almost everything as long as it is quality, except trap. I cannot trap. I might have heard one or two songs that are maybe interesting in trap, but that's it. I mean, it's just. But I like if it is quality stuff. I like everything from progressive rock, even some metal to easy pop going or classical music, or especially I like the minimalistic music. I don't have use electronic. I like everything. I don't. I'm not fanatical to one kind of music, disregarding the other ones. It's like food. I really like to explore and see what's new, what's going on. I can't really seem to like a lot the modern hip hop rap too much. Some of them, but having issues to find proper. But that's the case probably for all the pop music as well. So in the end, lots of quantity, less quality. And I just cannot find the quality in trap. Yes, your music is very good. Your music is very good. Needs lots of proper hearing, It's not something that you just put. I mean, if you put it on the background, you forget it because it needs your attention. But it's really good. Camera has trouble focusing, yeah. I was never much of a dance guy, but I will hear it. There are songs in anything from nightcore to death metal or electro, whatever. I mean, to give you what can I give you as an example of extreme situations? What was that song? I don't remember. But anyway, yeah. I mean, if it's good, it's good. I love Philip Glass, a lot. Some of the third songs. Yeah, Philip Glass a lot. Although Philip Glass is no more minimalistic, he defines his music as repetitive patterns, something. It cannot be embraced. Officially, our stance is I think I have heard something of Win Mertens, but I will double check my collection and see. I think I have some. Glass is very good at if you're driving outside on the mountains. My favorite Italian pasta, damn. Carbonara is of course one of the top. La gricia is also very good. There are some pastas, with salsiccia and porro and stuff like that, which are amazing. Lasagna, yeah, I know it's cliche and everybody's gonna say that, but you cannot. Everybody that says, "Oh, I don't like lasagna," it's too much of a cliche. It's lying to himself. Triadafile! Ευχαριστώ μεγάλε. Thank you so much, mate. Thank you. Far too kind. Thank you, buddy. Who decides on Kunos? I try to steer them from one side to the other, but usually it was Stefano and Marco, so I just abandoned the the um, the effort. It wasn't going anywhere. So I would have loved to have something, I don't know, classical Italian or something like that, to classical music to showcase the Italian reference of the game, or something more extreme. But and then you have obviously the problems to find the correct royalty-free music. It's not that easy. And I remind you that initially we were a very small company, so the cost, the budget for the music was as low as possible. So big compromises there. Hey, in music composition, it will happen, yeah, very soon. It's going to be difficult for all artists. Yeah. Where do I go for vacation? Oh, my best vacation is driving, exploring roads. If I can do that, which usually what I do is, I propose somewhere away to the family. Let's go there on that city or that place, and usually you have to drive a little bit to arrive there. So yeah, that's what I do. I particularly like mountains because when I was young, I got a lot of my share of Greece vacations on the sea, and even Italians, they will go crazy about Sicily or what, or that, on that sea and that beach and that place. When I go in those places, I'm like, yes, that's very nice, but it's nothing that I have not seen again for 18 years of my life constantly. So it's like very nice, good. I want to drive and see mountains and green and stuff like that. I prefer it. What do I drive in real life? My own car is Miata NBFL from 2001. It's the one that you see on the channel. I'm going through the road trips, the Nürburgring and so on. The family car is the Tesla. No, I'm very lucky. My wife is on set. He loves my driving, so I was here to study, and I just remained here. Ah, Dario, far too kind, mate. Yeah, no, my Italian is not that good. No, we're not going to incorporate a Discord or LFM. It's not something that we are willing to do. It takes a lot of effort to do it properly. It takes a lot of time, and as I said, as a development team, you have to do some compromises into what you can offer and what you can do with your know-how. So, yeah. No, Rob Zombie, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that it could have been maybe more characteristic or more particular or more artistic, if you want to. Right now it's cool, it's okay, it's acceptable, it's easy going, but it's not something that you will remember for your life, like the initial tunes from Gran Turismo, or even the initial tunes from GTR 2000, GTR 1, so to say, for example, which was I mean, it was a music that stays in your brain. So good job there. Yeah, some will. I mean, usually Italian, but we have plenty of foreign developers. So yes, English. Let's go into just chatting. it's 1 o'clock. Couple of questions more, and then we just call it a night, right? Yeah, I mean, almost everybody in Kunos works remote. We have obviously the office. Some people are in the office, but most of the workforce at Kunos is working remotely. Hello, Prabhu. Prabhu. Sorry. Dynamic damper, as it is controlled now, is mainly for uh, the rotational speed, and when you're stopping the rotational speed of the wheel. But the normal damper is what makes the big effect. Maybe another time, Sonal. Now, I mean, we will call it a day. We will call it a night. Very soon. Let's do a couple of questions. I want also to ask you guys if you enjoyed the live stream tonight, even though we didn't drop that much. What's something that I would change about some of the GT3 cars? Well, I don't know. I would like to have a better collision with the ground, a little bit more elastic and absorbing. I would like to have better damage for sure, but we cannot for many reasons: license, knowledge, know-how, effort, timing, and time needed, and so on. And the rest is, the usual stuff that I keep on working and working and working. Dario, yeah, I was 2001 Rookie of the Year in Italian Grand Prix Legends National Championship. I won. I had some records. I had a couple of world records, although not the big guys were running back then. In NASCAR 2003 road tracks, I've almost won a championship, although we had some issues at the end of the league, but practically we were really fast in the team. Again, NASCAR 2003 championship on road tracks we were doing back then. I was doing lots of work on the beta testing for GTR, and then slowly my driving career I went down, because obviously when you are driving so many hours for development modes or other things, you cannot always practice and be as fast as you can. And then at some point faster people came in, and age happened and this is where I am now. I think when I train well, I can do a P10 on pretty much almost any grid except the top SRO grid that you can see. But even then, I don't think I'm gonna be last. But I'm not that bad when I practice. Hey Samuel, that's very nice to hear. Thank you, simracing. Job opportunities, no idea, honestly. I don't think so right now, but you can always send the curriculum and stuff that and you never know. Depends what you do, how you do it, and so on. Obviously, we don't care about where you have studied, if you have studied, if you yourself learned the stuff. What we care is if you have done any work or if you can solve problems. So this kind of experience. Hire a welder. When I will open into my Miata, I will I will call you, David. Dario. Sanel is really happy about his lap. I can understand that. Well done, Verdi. Well done. It's okay. He's happy about that. That's okay. When someone is exciting, it's cool to be happy. Floor scrapping. Floor scrapping. Why it happens? Well, it happens because you touch the ground. How to avoid stiffer springs, higher ride height, or bump stops, stiffer bump stops, and higher ride height. Is it okay to have it if it doesn't make you make your car harder to control? Yeah, no problem. If it makes your car hard to control and you're losing time, then it's an issue you have to address as usual. Please tell me I'm not responding to different meaning of floor scrapping. Please don't do this to me. Prabhu says, why there are no tire compound options in ACC? Because in real life GT3 there are no tire compounds. Pirelli have made an amazing tire that might not be the best tire in terms of performance out there in comparison, I don't know, to the WEC tires of Michelin, Avon, and so on. But with just a single compound and two dimensions, one for cars that have the engine at the front, and one for all the cars that have the engine at the front mid or at the rear mid and at the rear. They have a tire that works for all the cars, and all the cars can work with that tire. Yes, they complain, yes, whatever, but the tire works, and that is an amazing engineering, solution, and well done to that. That's why also in ACC we have only one compound, of course, and the wets. Track Lizard says, how do you find happiness in life? I have my personal solution. My personal solution is whenever I feel down, etc., etc., I have learned to be very curious about the universe, the planet, and everything, and that curiosity for me is the meaning of life. It's an incredible thing for me to be something, animal, being, material, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. It's one can believe in something different. I don't care about what you believe and what you think you are. But whatever you are, it is an amazing thing to be able to understand that you are. And it is an amazing thing to be able to learn what surrounds you, especially the fucking big universe we're into. It doesn't matter if it is a simulation, if there is no free will, maybe because everything might be quantum fields or whatever. It doesn't matter. The fact that somehow you understand part of it and you have the curiosity to understand more is unfucking believable. And every time I'm really desperate, sad, stressed out, whatever, depressed, or an alien is busting my balls, so to say, I will just take a moment for me to think back to that get back into my curiosity, have a look at a couple of videos, on YouTube about that, and even the only fact that I can open a fucking screen which is connected to all the knowledge that we have, and learn something new, or simply look at something new and mysterious, is good enough. It's good enough. That's the happiness in life, in the end. Everything else, can come and go. Okay, that's me, because you can say, but your family, whatever, yes, everything, yes, okay, but there are some things, that some moments that will find you alone in the universe. There are some moments that, I don't know, your girlfriend might have left you, or your wife you might have been separated, or your parent or your children made something bad to you, or I don't know, whatever. You find yourself alone, poor, depressed, terrible. The fact that you can still look at the stars and understand that you have the fortune to be into such position, it's fucking amazing. Sorry about the bad words, but it really is. So that helps me to move forward. And 42, of course. Fog, yeah, we also have fog here, yes. Yes, I think we have tons of problems. I absolutely agree. We have big inequalities. We have a completely rigged system. We have a completely fake democracy, whatever, pretty much everywhere in the world. But on the other hand, we are in one of the most amazing technologically eras. We have access to the whole knowledge of the whole planet, of the whole history, instantly. And yet, I believe we complain a bit too much sometimes. I'm not saying it's not justified. It's absolutely, completely justified, and we should. But we should also take some time to be happy sometimes, because we can afford it. What is the question? The question is why. How? Why and how is the question. Glig, we did just like 3 hours of pretty much showing bump stops and stuff like that working, so I think they work. It's okay. I mean, we are ending the live stream, so we can say a little bit of stupid things. I don't know about the load cell mode. I guess it works, but I don't know exactly. Who is that? Wilhelm. Hello, welcome to the channel, buddy. Edwin's Maze asks, when creating a game, at the end of the day, who decide what is realistic simulation? How do you have real racing drivers try your game and use their input, or just go with what you feel is right? Well, the first one to decide is me. After all these years, that's on me to decide. The second to decide is Fernando, which is working on that. And then, obviously, Marco will decide and give the final approval, of course. But in the last years, it's like, you guys know, do your stuff. Um, there is not much to decide in terms of we do the absolute best we can with the knowledge we have. What you are driving right now is the best we can do following as hardcore simulation we can create as possible. There are no cutting corners, there are no the corners we are cutting is like it doesn't work on the PC. How can we do it to work? We don't have that knowledge. How can we learn and make it better? Those are the corners we might cut, but it's not something you do intentionally. It's something that I don't know how to do it. I will study something and do it, and then maybe, oh, I found a better solution, or some alien found an exploit, so maybe we didn't do it correctly. Let's improve it. On top of that, we are talking right now about more than 12 or 14 years of experience with real drivers, real engineers. Actually, for many years our officers were on top of Vallelunga circuit, so every time anybody would come to the circuit to test something, we will take him, ask him, take him up to drive and so on. So it's a consistent and continuous exchanging information with drivers, engineers, mechanics, academics, in order to learn more, to understand more, to do a better job. That's how we do it. And that experience leads you also to understand that you cannot trust with your eyes closed what a driver will tell you about driving. It depends on how he understands the driving. For example, to give you a very, very clear example, for decades, teams would choose their junior drivers from, the smaller series, go-karts, Formula Fords, Formula 2, Formula 3, whatever. Nowadays, I'm not saying that it's not important, but it's almost second important the results that you're having in the lower series. It is becoming number one of importance of how to choose a junior driver. How fast the junior driver is to get on the simulator and do instantly laps at the limit on whatever car track combination they throw at him. That is what they're searching. They're searching for people that they throw him into the simulator, and in like 2 laps, 5 laps, they can go on the very limit of the whatever track setup car combination they have decided to run. This has become extremely important, which showcase how important it is to have someone that understands how to drive on the simulator and give feedback back. You get drivers to tell you this is shit, I cannot turn, I cannot drive, and then they go to the real track and do the same error and crash to the same point as in the simulator. Or you get drivers that keep on telling you, I have understeer, this doesn't turn, and you keep on making the car more oversteery, and they keep on complaining, and then you understand with experience how they're driving, and you make the car more stable, and then instantly they stop fighting the car, and the car is not understeering anymore because you made it more stable. And they say, oh, that's perfect, but in reality you made it more understeery than even what they were experiencing as understeery. So it's very, very important, and I can assure you we didn't know how to do that initially. It's something that you're learning with experience, and we've been very fortunate to have the office on top of Vallelunga and be able to talk to so many drivers. Initially, it wasn't even easy. Now it's much easier, and people practically search for you. Oh, McCormack! Oh my God! You should ask Mercedes to get you on the simulator, man. No, the dampers on AC do not work the same way as ACC. ACC uses proper uh, damping curves. Even though we have some bugs, we're trying to improve, and I think we are having some. As you might have seen today, we're having some good results, maybe. AC uses fixed values for specific bump and rebound speeds. Another question says, Edvis Mays, have been times where the driver's input feedback went against what you believe to be true realistic. How do you balance that? Absolutely yes. Even though it's more fine-tuning, it's not a completely different. And actually, it still keeps on going like that. Any driver you will ask, it will always tell you, in reality, I have more grip, I have more traction, I have better braking. Feel plays a big importance in that. I can give you a tire that makes you do the exact same lap time and the exact same lateral G's maximum and average, and exact same longitudinal G's maximum and average, and the feel between one and the other will be completely different. On one you will feel to have the whole grip possible available, and on the other you will be feeling that the tire is on ice all the time. So as you can see, the absolute values and even the average values mean nothing. How the tire creates the grip is where the magic happens. We don't have exact information about that. It's always a constant searching, exploring, reading, trying new stuff, learning new stuff, absolutely. And obviously we are lagging a little bit behind the academic part, and on some parts we are also a little bit ahead sometimes, but it's not something you can verify and have proof. It's more a feel and a sensation, and then maybe you read a new scientific document, you say, aha, so we were right on that. So it's know-how. It's know-how. A lot of this is know-how. No, all GT3 cars, absolutely. Miyanoku, new tire model always applies to all GT3 cars. Epic video didn't show the setup. What do you mean, man? Whatever. Anyway, thanks for the thumbs down. What can I say? Is it teach me how to rotate the cursor properly? The cursor rotates. That's a good thing. Octavian asks incredibly important and interesting question. Says, how important is driving style when approaching a new car? Do you try to suppress it and try to drive as neutral as possible to observe car behavior unaltered? or as close to as possible. So what I try to do is, well, first of all, you put obviously the data in, and now with the experience of more than a decade of doing this stuff, you know what to expect from a car, from the data that you see, from the configuration of the car. I mean, sometimes we are at the position right now that we see the matrix in terms of I can see a suspension data of the geometry, just get the numbers, make the 3D of the geometry, look at the suspension and say, oh, that's a BMW, that's a Porsche, that's an Alfa Romeo. You can see the tendencies that each manufacturer has into their engineering solutions. You can also see when a manufacturer is copying another, trying to make similar situations. And on top of that, it is very important to be able to adjust your driving style from one car to the other very fast. Otherwise, I couldn't do the job that I'm doing. And it's also very important to understand what the car realistically should do. So you have, for example, very fast drivers that they believe that the only thing they care is that you turn your steering wheel and the car will rotate. And you can see from their setups when you try them that what is completely normal for them, if you let the car go alone, it will simply over-rotate and go into a spin. And this is something that usually on a normal setup car, even a racing car, it will not happen. The car should stay stable, okay? And so one of the things you're trying to do is to see, okay, can I bring the car with the correct setups and the correct configuration to be a stable, safe, fast car? Yes, no. If you cannot, then you start obviously talking with the drivers and the engineers, trying to understand the character of the car. For some cars, it might happen that the driver and the engineer will tell you, what, we always have. If we want to go fast with this car, we have to make it unstable, and it rotates too much. It is uncomfortable to drive, but it's the only way. For some other cars, will tell you, no, you know what, at the exits we always have to, we struggle with understeer, and so on and so on. So when you are setting up, you're inputting the data that they're real, you do not touch them, and then you set up the car and you expect to find similar situations. If you find something completely different, something is wrong, something is amiss, you need to fix it. Or something is completely wrong in the physics, so you need to find out what's going on, and so on and so on. Well, certainly, at this maze, you have manufacturers that are like, open books and give you everything they have. Porsche, Mercedes, McLaren also collaborated a lot. BMW, I mean, you have others that, they keeping the secrets like nothing, or they will simply never talk to you. So you have to find data otherwise from third parties or people that and so on. So part of the job. From your sim racer standpoint, well, you have to understand that even though each car has its own characteristics, those are race cars, and race cars should behave. So it's difficult nowadays to have a car that is completely out of whack, as it would happen, I don't know, in the 60s, so to say. So nowadays racing cars are very well engineered and they should behave. You will find parts of the characteristics and specific character in the fine tuning, in the details, but globally the car should be able to be to go fast with a decent setup. Maybe not, completely top level, but yeah. Maserati. Hey Chris, καλησπέρα. Καλημέρα, ναι, σωστά. Alright guys, uh, before closing, I hope you liked the live stream tonight. I hope it was interesting. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for so many. I believe that judging from the numbers, it was interesting enough. So we just have to organize those marathons. Probably this time we won't do marathons that the duration is a whole day. We might do though like 3 days a week or 4 days a week of be a better sim racer for 2023. We will do maybe some before the end of the year and a couple before the end of the year and a couple at the start of the year, and that would be fun, I guess, and interesting, right? So let's see if we manage to do another live stream next week, and for sure we'll find some way. I don't know how long it will be. If you have any ideas, if you know what you would like to hear about and what to address, or maybe one specific subject to make a longer live stream only for that, let me know in the comments or in the Discord, and we will try to make it happen. All right? So once again, thank you so much, guys, for joining tonight. See you on the next live stream. Good night. I cannot find the click. Where is the click? Click. Ah, there it is. I was running on the beta version all night long.